Welcome to episode 394 of the DFO Rundown. As always, brought to you by Bet365. Get in the game. Use the promo code NATION at Bet365. I'm Jason Greger alongside Frank Seravalli. The Stanley Cup is in the books. The Florida Panthers are back-to-back champions. That's three consecutive champions in the last decade. Penguins 16-17, Lightning 2021, and now the Panthers in 24 and 25. It seems, Frank, when you get to the top, you can stay there.
Potentially. I think big question for everyone else is, can they knock off the champs? Because that's proven to be really difficult. And guess what? I don't think they're going anywhere.
Well, they're GM, and I get it. It's emotional. You're right in the celebration. I think we can sign all of them. And maybe they can, but I'm not sure they do just based on how they build their team. I'm not sure they're going to bring them all back, but I understand why he says it at that point rather than try to take away from anybody's celebration at the moment. Let them enjoy it.
Yeah, I think knowing Bill Zito, though, as aggressive as he is, my guess is that he's going to make a valiant effort to try and keep everyone together. Look, it's hard to handicap because you never truly know what a team values, but it kind of feels to me like Seth Jones is the perfect in-house replacement for Aaron Ekblad, and that he can take over a lot of what Ekblad was going to do and can do it even more efficiently and with better boots. So if I had to guess which one is the odd man out, who's got the best chance of coming back, it starts with Bennett, but then I think that opens the door if Ekblad is moving on for Brad Marchand.
Yeah. I think Bennett's a no-brainer to stay in Florida. I see his contract. I'm going to say around 7.5 to 8 mil. That's what I'm going to guess. So for AAB, and
it's really hard to beat that. And when you just crunch the numbers and do the math, the addition of the 8th year makes whatever Florida's offering very competitive.
Yes, 100% agreed. So we'll see what the Cats do. They're still celebrating it as they should be. Somewhere Nate Schmidt is he's this year's early leader for best partier to win. And I get it. You've been in the league that long, you should have a lot of fun. So
he's good. This year's early leader for guy who significantly increased his net worth this season.
Wow. But you know what? There's a player who had made some big money on his previous contracts and then said, you know what? I want to go somewhere where I can compete and have a chance to win. Signed 1 year at $800,000, bet on himself, and it worked. And it's interesting to me, like he was the perfect third pair guy for Florida. And I could see if he wants to come back, or maybe he wants to get a bigger payday. We'll see.
Got to go out and get the payday now. You've won the cup. You've reunited with Paul Maurice. I mean, look, it was less than 1 calendar year ago, June 29, that he was bought out by the Winnipeg Jets. It's amazing how life has changed for Nate Schmidt since then. You go from scrap heap to signing a basically minimum wage deal, winning the Stanley Cup, 5 points in the Stanley Cup final series. And now you can parlay that into another $9, $10, $12 million on your next contract after getting a cup ring. I mean, I get the allure of wanting to stay in Florida, but some pretty significant earning left to do.
Yeah, he's already made over 40 sheets in his career, so he's done all right. So he could chase the money, or maybe he wants to chase the opportunity to go back to back, which I'm sure can be enticing for some guys. So congrats to the Panthers. The Oilers, we'll get to them, and then we're going to continue on. Last pod, we did the 8 teams who didn't make the playoffs in the West. How's their offseason looking? We'll look at the 8 teams in the East today who didn't make the playoffs. But the Oilers, some news. The interesting one, Frank, was the NHL is still investigating the Evander Kane, LTIR on the season, and then he played in the second playoff game. He didn't play in the first one. Mm-hmm. What do you make of this?
Well, it's definitely interesting. And I don't know if investigation is the right word. I'd say they're still examining. They're still looking through it. And the fact that they haven't officially closed the file on it after the season is over, and this kind of, it's a 57-day, 60-day span, almost 2 months since Kane has played. It's really kind of fascinating because we've never had this pop up before. We know that they scrutinize every LTIR return for the playoffs, and they go through the medical records and medical opinions, and obviously the player needs to sign off as well. But I can tell you from the Oilers' perspective, they feel like they've done everything on the up and up, that they seem to be pretty surprised that this is still a thing, as the NHL is looking at this and thinks that this is something that they might need some more information to satisfy that the Oilers were in full compliance with the CBA. I mean, Kane wasn't alone. There was a small handful of players that have come back from LTIR into the playoffs this season. Matthew Tkachuk in Florida, Gabriel Landeskog in Colorado, Max Pacioretty in Toronto. So Kane was the fourth one, and maybe Kane's situation is a little bit different because he didn't play a single game in the regular season. We know Landeskog didn't play for almost 3 calendar years. But with Kane, I mean, just to unpack the timeline so everyone's familiar, back in September, he had a significant surgery to repair 2 adductor muscles that were torn. He had hernias. He had other surgical repairs in his groin area. So it was a pretty significant procedure that was scheduled to keep him out until late March. So that's obviously within the time frame of the regular season. But then on January 9th, he had undergone a second surgery that was to remove a congenital tumor-like growth that had appeared in his knee and became to a point where he wasn't comfortable and was in pain. So they removed it, but at that January 9 mark, it then paused his rehab from the groin for a period of 7 to 8 weeks and extended it further out. And so I'm sure some people listening are going, okay, that's amazing. Congenital thing that he was born with that all of a sudden becomes an issue at age 33 or whatever he is, 31. How is that possible? And that's awful convenient for this time frame. That's the other part of this examination, Jay, is that we don't know exactly what part the NHL is looking at or what they might have an issue with as they work through this. But just to recap from an Oilers cap perspective, the Oilers' response to this would be, we could have used Kane's LTIR money from Jump Street. We could have used it probably in August, knowing that this might be coming down the pike, to match the offer sheets for Holloway and Broberg. We could have traded for their replacements. We didn't use it all season long. And then even when it came to Trent Frederic 3 days before the deadline, they had his salary retained twice in New Jersey and Boston, so that even after trading for Trent Frederic, the Oilers still could have activated and had enough space to activate again Evander Kane during the regular season. That it wasn't until within 24 hours of the deadline that they made the trade for Jake Wallman that they actually ended up using that space once they finally got clarity from doctors that he wouldn't be cleared to play until the playoffs.
Yeah. So that's why I don't really understand about whatever you call it, examination, investigation, either one. It just, we've seen guys that have done this multiple times and, magically come back on the first day of the playoffs. But this is the one they're looking at. It just, I don't know. Especially when Bettman comes out and, we don't really worry about it, but it just seems, I don't know. It seems rather odd to me. Maybe it's because of it's Kane. I don't know, but,
well, I can tell you this, they're addressing it in the CBA. It's been on the table in CBA negotiations. My guess is that they institute some kind of soft salary cap for the playoffs moving forward. That's the best way or easiest way to clean it up. But it's obviously become a pain point for general managers, for the league, for everyone that's complaining about it, that they want to do something about it. The question is, will they actually do something about it in the case of Kane?
Yeah, it's pretty simple for me what they do. You make your 20-man roster in the playoffs, has to be cap compliant. Also included in that is any bonus overages your team accrued, right? Also, any dead cap space that you had on the books all year long, right? All that there. And like when you trade for a guy like Brad Marchand, you only get the percentage of his cap that you had from the time you acquired him till the end of the season. So that's what he counts at. Totally valid. However, the player that you traded away up until that point, who counted against, his cap should also be part of your playoff one. It's simple. And then away you go. And that's the way that you can have teams suddenly having $90 million on the cap, or 92, and they're next year 98 because it'll be over. And it still gives you some flexibility because it's only the 20-man roster when currently you have a 23-man roster. So that's what I would do. I think it's fairly simple.
Yeah, I think in the end, the odds are probably stacked against the Oilers being penalized. It would be a significant departure from how this has been handled in the past. But the fact that it's still an open issue 2 months after the fact leads you to believe that the NHL sees something here that they don't necessarily love, or at least have questions about.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. I'm assuming that they'll have to have a decision before July 1st, because if there's going to be any cap penalty, the team has to know what it is before the new year starts.
And that would be significant for the Oilers, because literally every penny counts for next season for them, with Bouchard needing a new deal. I'd imagine Kane is trade fodder anyway, but the Draisaitl extension kicks in. How are you solving for your goaltending issue, if any? It's really going to matter if there is a retroactive penalty.
One player that they're re-signing is Trent Frederic, Frank, coming in somewhere around 3.7, 3.8, give or take. 8-year deal for him, and looks like he's going for security. He's very young. He's as young as you can be in free agency, 27 years of age. And what do you make of the Frederic signing? I think this is a player who they like his tenacity, his physicality, and they believe that what you saw in the playoffs isn't really close to the normal Trent Frederic once he's fully recovered from his high ankle sprain.
I understand that what we saw from Trent Frederic this season and in the playoffs wasn't what you could reasonably expect. Like, we have enough of a sample size and track record for a 16 goal scorer, 40-point player. I guess the one thing that I struggle to understand from an Oilers perspective is, where's the upside for the team? Because you've made such a long-term commitment, how much is he vastly going to exceed? Let's just say the cap hits 3.8. How much is he vastly going to exceed that number?
Yeah, well, it's a fair question, right? Like I know if you look in 5 years, 3.8 cap hit is worth about 2.7 right now. So we'll all have to adjust what we value a number at on players moving forward, because the cap hit goes up so much on what they are in production wise, especially the higher end players. I don't think, if you're an $8 million player, you should score 80 points. Now, if you're an $8 million player, it's probably going to be like 70 points or 68 or something. So we'll probably have to readjust, but it's a valid question, right? You know my stance on long-term deals. So lower AAVs I can kind of live with, but I'm still not the hugest proponent of him unless you're an elite player.
Well, we've just never seen. Really, it's rare that deals of this term for players of that impact rarely seem to work out. That's I think the thought process. And so, look, does he have 2 solid NHL seasons where he was really productive? Yes, he does. But he's also played, 200 other NHL games essentially where he didn't play at that level. And no matter what, he's still a bottom 6 forward on a good team. That is the going rate. We get it. But what's the incentive for the Oilers to sign up for 8 years instead of doing a deal that chews up 4 years of UFA?
It's funny with the player right now, Frank, that's so hot. Just won the first player in NHL history that their first major trophy award is a Conn Smythe after being in the league a decade, Sam Bennett. And you look at Sam Bennett's numbers up until he was 26, right? His highest point totals was like, he had his rookie year, he had 36. And then after that, he was like 27, 26, 27, 12, 26, 12. And now he's really exploded. And, now physical player. I just wonder if they think this is a guy maybe they can unlock more, similar to how Florida did with Bennett.
Maybe.
I'm guessing that's what they're betting on.
But Bennett also signed for more than what Frederic did now, and he did that 6 years ago. There's an obvious disparity even in what the perceived ceiling is of these players.
Or you could say when Bennett signed his deal at the time for a 25, 26 point player, it didn't work out till the final few years of the deal.
I guess.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll see. It is an interesting one. Like longer term deals for non-elite players have a tendency to not work out. There's no question. Lower term, it helps you. But hey, if you end up being $500,000 overpaid at that position, whereas some top end guys are $1 million, it all adds up in the salary cap world. So yeah, they're going to need good production from Trent Frederic next year. No question. I'm curious to see if they play him at center or on the wing. And maybe they look at him as a replacement. I don't know if he has the high end skill. I don't think he does of Evander Kane. We'll see. But I think he'll look at some physicality maybe to play with McDavid or Draisaitl.
I'm so glad you brought up the Bennett contract, because the numbers are actually pretty uncanny as I'm crunching them in real time. Bennett, at the time that the deal was signed, had played 412 games and had 152 points.
Yep.
And when you look at Frederic, he's at 338 games and 109 points. So in his next season, Frederic will need to get to 49 points essentially to match Bennett, and Bennett signed for more. So I guess maybe that answers the question that I originally started this conversation with. What is the upside?
Yeah. So
maybe that is it in a rising cap environment. That's what it is.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. Now let's get to our 8 teams in the East. And we always like to work our way up from 16th through to 9th place. And some people might forget, but the Philadelphia Flyers, in fact, finished last in the East, which is where they won in a rebuild year, 76 points, 33 wins. They were tied with Boston, but Boston had more regulation wins. And so let's look at this Flyers. Obviously, Michkov's a guy they're building around. Is this another clear, like we've talked about this, the Flyers should be a team like some of those Western teams. This is not the summer to make a big improvement when you look at the 2026 draft. This is a summer to say, hey, let's just keep building with our young players and hope that we're in the mix for a top 5 pick and maybe Gavin McKenna.
That's how I've thought of it. If I'm a team that's already in that realm, this is not the year I want to be exiting it, because I want to try and find a true difference maker in the draft next year. And I think there's more than just one. If you're able to land a true franchise defenseman in Keaton Verhoff at number 2, or pick a player out of the hat, like you're talking about a serious impact guy. So I just don't know if the Flyers share that same viewpoint. And that's going to be really interesting to see. They feel like this past year was a disappointment, that they should have taken a bigger step forward. Obviously, John Tortorella, they make the coaching change, end up hiring Rick Tocchet. What is the Flyers' level of aggression this summer? It's obvious that they're looking for a center. They're on the list of teams that are in that market. But I can tell you that the Flyers have spent the last 3 weeks plus trying to find a goalie. They want to improve in net, and they've been pounding the pavement to try and do that.
Yeah, because they've got Fedotov and Urson, 25 and 28, younger guys. Think about goalies, Frank. Like one of those guys could easily pop this year. We've seen it historically in the NHL. You get to 25, 26, and a lot of goalies start to find their way in the NHL. So
is Sergei Bobrovsky winning 2 Stanley Cups proof enough alone? I mean, I watched him play all of his formative NHL hockey. The fact that they moved him for a mid-round pick to make room for Ilya Bryzgalov is just still one of the great blunders in pro hockey in the salary cap era.
Yeah, no. Well, and the other thing about the Flyers is they have right now about $6.8 million in dead cap space that all comes off the books next year. Cam Atkinson, Kevin Hayes, Scott Lawton. And that's significant. And so to me, I think the Flyers, if you're going to make a big jump, I would look at it and say next year is the year we're going to do it. You sure you want your players to improve? And, if they're looking for a goalie, okay, fair. But are they going to make the right decision on Urson and Fedotov and which one they're going to move off of? Right. That to me is the question. Like everybody knows what happened to Toronto. It's a prime example when you had two young goalies and they picked the wrong one, right? They picked Pogge and moved Rask. So I think it's when you got two young ones, you better be certain that you move the right one.
Yeah. I think still a story to be written, of course, but I think we have a pretty good indication that the ceiling for at least Fedotov is not Fedotov, however you want to say it, is not as high as once thought. But I misspoke, by the way. It was a second and 2/4 for Bobrovsky in 2012.
Okay.
So either way, watching him go on to win multiple Vezinas and multiple Stanley Cups, point is still the same.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So do you see, but the thing is, hey, there'll be other teams. Everybody's looking for goalies. I'm not like the goalie market right now, Frank. There's not a lot on it.
This is as thin as it's been in a while.
Yeah.
Jake Allen is the top free agent available. And on the trade market, you've got John Gibson. It's not teaming with quality options, which I think is part of the reason why the Flyers have been searching far and wide. And I'm just going to keep hammering this point home because I think it really matters for the Flyers moving forward. Have to check positional boxes. I cannot say this enough. Goaltender, franchise defenseman, center. Jet Luchenko appears to be a nice player. They've got Bump and Bonk and a bunch of guys that are on the way. Who's your center? Who is Michkov is obviously a winger. You need a center. You need a franchise defenseman. You need a goalie. How far away are the Flyers? That's what everyone keeps asking me when I run into them at a restaurant or at a bar. When are they going to win? How soon is it going to be? It's when you check those boxes, then I can give you an answer.
Yeah, totally valid. And to me, the best place to get some of those is in the top 5 in the NHL draft, for certain, for the D-man in the center, no question. And so I think that's what they'd be better suited. Now, the Boston Bruins tied Philly. Like, they had a massive collapse in the second half of the season.
So good.
Swayman didn't have a good year. They move off of Marchand, and he looked great. In Florida is a perfect mix for him. I know Bruins fans are, we should have kept him. I don't think Brad Marchand would have. Well, first of all, I wasn't going to make the playoffs, so you never would have seen that. There's a guy who changed the narrative, because before the playoffs, some people thought, maybe he's slowing down a little bit. And then the playoffs came and he's like, let's pump the brakes on that. They do have Charlie McAvoy. They've got some other good defensemen. They traded away a fair amount of guys at the deadline, Frank. They're looking to kind of retool on the fly. They still need a center iceman. I don't care what anybody says. That's what they need. They got an elite winger in David Pasternak. Like, Boston, to me, of all the teams who didn't make the playoffs, if I'm picking odds, near the bottom anyway, I'm like, hey, I think the Boston Bruins got a very good chance. Them and the Rangers would be the two teams I'd pick to have the best chance to make the playoffs next year. But how aggressive do you think they can be where there's not a huge market out there? What do you see the Bruins doing?
I don't think being a bottom dweller in the Eastern Conference is in their DNA. That's not in their mantra, their vocabulary. That's not what they're thinking. So much like the Rangers, my belief is the Bruins are trying to spool this up into a quick retool to use some of the assets that they've collected as part of this quick teardown between Marchand, which did become a first-round pick, Brandon Carlo, they shipped out a ton of guys, Charlie Coyle. They've got a lot of work to do. And I think you're right about the center position. They do have some cap space. They've got some flexibility. I wonder if they take a run at, I know it's not a center, but do they take a run in free agency at replacing some of the goals scored by Jake DeBrusk? Do they go after Brock Besser? An interesting kind of Vancouver swap is what that would be. Yes, the center position is critical. They've got Zaka there. They've got Geeky there. Geeky needs a new deal coming off of a 33-goal season. And one additional conscientious center, I think, would go a long way. But I think this defense core, as maligned as it appeared to be at times last year, plus a big bounce back year from Swayman, like if Swayman is in the 900 somewhere, I think we're telling a different story about the Boston Bruins and their season.
Valid. Although what's interesting was the year before when they had him switching, splitting time, that environment in Boston wasn't very good, but the goalies were elite. And that kind of covered up for a lot of their misgivings. Mm-hmm. So to me, yes, Swayman came down, but I think it showed that maybe Boston wasn't as good as they thought. They were just saved by elite goaltending and him and Allmark the year before. So that to me is kind of the interesting one. They got a middle ground, probably puts them more as a wild card team, Frank, but I don't see the Bruins being an upper echelon team.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think they have some definite flaws, but they're a candidate for sure to bounce back. And I think maybe if you're looking for some kind of positive, is Swayman was really good at the Worlds. The quality of competition isn't the same, but when you go 7-0 with a .921 save percentage and lead your country to the first gold medal at the Worlds in 92 years, like maybe that's the positive energy that you're hoping for your goalie that's now entering the second year of a massive 8-year contract. That's what you're hoping for.
Yeah. The Bruins, they have only one first. They have 2 seconds, but not their own. And they have an extra fourth. They do have an extra first in 26 and 27. So they'll have some cachet. We didn't mention that the Flyers have 3 first rounders, and I'll be curious if they use them all or if they end to move them. But Boston is not one of the bottom feeder teams that has extra picks so much this year. Basically, they have 1 extra second.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Flyers are going to have some decisions to make. I'd imagine that they're trading one of those. The Flyers pick 7 times in the first 64.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, Frank, I wonder when I know it won't change for this draft, but eventually the new rules are coming for the NHL draft. I think players that are playing in major junior who end up going to college, then they're just going to maintain their rights longer than the current 2-year period. So, that might impact some teams and how they view draft picks and say, hey, we'll have a little bit extra time, not just a 2-year window anymore for certain players.
I think they're just going to still pick the best player.
I
think they're also going to then help direct the player on where to play. That's why you're seeing a lot of players that are playing major junior right now that are likely going to NCAA that haven't made their decision or commitment yet because they want to know what their team's thinking that picks them.
Yeah, I don't discount that they would take the best player, but I'm just saying you might say, well, we have too many draft picks because they all come out at the same time. But in this case, they might not. Some will be 2 years. You have to sign them. Some you'll get 3 or 4. So that's what I meant as far as it just gives you a little bit more flexibility in when you have to sign the player.
Mm-hmm.
Up next in the East, the Buffalo Sabres, 14 years out of the playoffs. What's strange about the Sabres is it's 14 years out of the playoffs, and some of their best players are on the top of your trade board, Frank. You've got Bowen Byram. You have JJ Peterka. And it's kind of like, what the hell is going on? Like Sabre fans, I could see them being like, what is happening? We missed the playoffs 14 years in a row. Now we're going to get rid of our kind of like younger players who are 24, 25, 26. What, we're going to start another rebuild?
I don't think it's going to be another rebuild, but I think they're going to reshape the foundation of the team. That's the best way to explain it. And not all of it's going to be by choice. I don't think they had any interest at all in trading JJ Peterka.
Yeah.
But I will be very surprised if he's in a Buffalo Sabres uniform come October. I'll be stunned. I think we see a Peterka trade materialize between now and the draft. I think the number of interested teams has been both legitimate and the interest that they've presented has been significant. Some of the teams that I think are in the mix include the Islanders, Chicago, Tampa, Vancouver, the Rangers, just to name a few. They have all been squarely in there. And my understanding is that if you're able to connect some of the dots around the league, Kevin Adams has been asking for a right shot defenseman. So if they're asking for a right shot defenseman, then that means that they're moving Bowen Byram, which also isn't a shock, but they're obviously trying to make a couple of these puzzle pieces fit together in conjunction so that if they're making a deal for Peterka and it includes a right shot defenseman, that they do that before, or they do it all at the same time so that no one's holding you over a barrel saying, hey, we know you're trading Byram now. That's one of the things that I've pieced together so far.
Well, you look at JJ Peterka, Frank, and here is like, this is the greatest outline of how you should develop a second round pick. So he's taken second round, 34th overall in 2020. He stays in 2021. He stays in Europe as a young player, as he should. Then he comes over.
It's also during COVID.
Yeah, but still he stayed there, which is fine. Then he comes over for the 21-22 season, plays in the American League, almost a point a game player. 28 goals, 68 points in the American League. You know how hard it is to be a teenager in the American League and be a point a game player? Like, it is rare. So you're like, wow, this is great. Guy's developing. Then he comes up to the NHL. It's a hard jump. 32 points. Second season, 28 goals, 50 points. Third season, 27 goals, 68 points. You're like, oh my God, we got a guy who's right in there. Second round pick, is a top 6, maybe a top line player. And now you got to trade him. WTF? Why the face? I'm just joking from a reference there from Phil Dunphy. But seriously, are you kidding me? Like, this is, what the hell happened? Like, what happened that you have a player that you've developed? This is a great example of drafting and developing. And now you're going to move him. And it's going to be hard to get fair value. It just is.
I don't know if it's going to be hard to get fair value. I think they're going to be able to get something really close based on what I'm understanding is the offers that have been put on the table.
So they're getting a legit player back. You're telling me, like, it's got it.
Yeah. I from what I've heard, I believe that to be the case. Yes.
So there's going to be a second pair right defenseman, is what you're saying, like second pair, first pair, younger player,
yep.
Right? It's got to be close to his age.
Yep.
JJ Peterka is only 23. Right.
Yeah.
So hopefully you're not trading for a 27, 28-year-old. Like, I'm just, from a Buffalo Sabres standpoint, if you're a fan, you're thinking like, what the hell? They can't lose this trade. Like, this is good. This was supposed to be one of your cornerstone pieces for your team. Right.
Yeah. But this is what happens when you miss the playoffs for 14 years in a row. You have the same coaching staff that you bring back after a disastrous year. You have a general manager that needs to have an experienced guy brought in to help steer the ship because things seem to be lacking direction. And you have an organization that hasn't been able to get out of its own way. What's the incentive for anyone to want to hang around that? That's what I'm missing. Kevin Adams had his trademark line at some point around the trade deadline when he said, palm trees and state taxes. Like, those are, it's at the end of the day, it's still all about a chance to win, a vision, and an ability to compete. And when you're not playing in meaningful hockey games, it's not just Peterka. It takes its toll on a lot of other people around the team.
Fair, right? So that's fair. But to me,
and after all those things, it's still Buffalo, and I like Buffalo, but it's not a place that people are clamoring to go to. So if you have all those things going on, no light at the end of the tunnel, and it's Buffalo, I think you're in a tough spot. Like, let's say the quiet part out loud.
Yeah, well, let's be honest. To me, winning's all that matters. Guys will stay in any market if their team's winning and competitive. I think we've seen that. I
totally agree, and that's why the Winnipeg Jets have been ultra successful the last few years. They have talent because they have a good team. But when you don't have a good team, when you don't have, you can't see, you got to squint real hard to see that there's a chance to be good, and you've got a market that people aren't in love with, that's a tough place.
Yeah, the big thing for Buffalo is, can Josh Norris stay healthy? I didn't love that trade for a guy with shoulder injuries. That to me is going to be a big story to follow, Frank, because that might be another major issue for the Sabres. Like, he's got to stay healthy.
Yeah. Well, what do you do with Power and Dahlin? That's the big question, I think. If you're making a trade, are both of those like let's say they go out and get a high-end right shot defenseman, okay? How much are you going to pay that guy, and how do they fit into this cap structure and scheme with Dahlin and Power? You can't devote $28 to $30 million to one half of your defense. They've got a lot of questions to answer.
Which is, man, I feel for the Sabre fans. Now let's get to the Pittsburgh Penguins, Frank, they got a boatload of mid-round picks over the next few seasons, but they only have 1 first, 1 second. It's not theirs, it's Washington's. They got 3 thirds, 2 fifths this year. Next year, 2 firsts, 3 seconds already. We keep hearing that they're going to try to retool on the fly here, Frank. Do you think they can do it? And is Erik Karlsson on his way out?
Erik Karlsson is definitely on the table. I think the big question is, will someone step up to get him? I think there's been a few teams that have been sniffing around. I wouldn't call it hard interest, but they're definitely talking about it. And some other teams that I know are talking about it internally. Are the Penguins willing to eat on the $10 million that remains on his deal for the next 2 years? And then the next thing is, who else in Pittsburgh is on their way out? By my estimation, as we've talked about all these teams in the league that are trying to get better and improve, and this is the theme of the 2025 offseason, is there's such a huge chunk of teams in this league that want to get better right now, that have cap space, have flexibility, have picks. Everyone's after getting better. In the last few cycles of off seasons, we've seen a lot of teams that either by necessity had to make deals to pry off of their books because they didn't have cap space and needed to find flexibility, or we've seen a bunch of teams that were still on the downslope and wanted to rebuild. By my estimation, the Penguins are the only team in the league this year, this summer, that are okay with getting worse next season.
Yeah.
That's not a knock. It's actually the smartest thing.
I agree.
And they've got a long teardown to get to the bottom before they can build back up again.
Dude, I'll say it. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but the parting of the ways with Crosby is the best thing for both parties. But I'm not sure it'll happen, but it's the best thing.
I just have a hard time seeing it happen until after Evgeny Malkin's tenure with the team wraps up. That's just my sense.
Well, Malkin, this is the last year of his deal, correct?
Yes.
So, is that a year foreshadowing, Frank? We'll see, but maybe. It's an interesting one. Like, maybe they trade Malkin too at the deadline. Right? Like, why not? So, why not? At some point, you got to move on from guys, and the players want to move on too. So
who else is available? Karlsson, Rust, Raquel. What are they just playing out the string with Jari, whose deal is essentially buyout proof? Matt Grzelcyk going to market. That's the state of the Penguins, is on the downslope.
Yeah. Tristan Jari's got to be someone they hope can bounce back. I don't see a market for him. I agree with you wholeheartedly. So, and goalies have done it. It's a wild position, man. It is a wild position. We've seen it before. So maybe he can do it again. But the Penguins, I think, will have like lots of talk. I know there was some Mitch Marner talk there. I don't see Mitch Marner going to Pittsburgh.
Doesn't make a lot of sense other than the Kyle Dubas connection.
Yeah, I don't see it. Up next, team's got a new GM, the New York Islanders. The head coach is staying, so they've already made their big move, one of them, with their new GM. And I have to think, Frank, with the new GM, they're going to be looking to want to make some changes here in the offseason. And Noah Dobson contract. What kind of numbers do you think we're hearing? $9 million at least?
I heard that the ask was 11.
11?
I mean, we all know that starting points are not the end point, and I don't see a path for him to get to that number, but he does have a 70-point season under his belt. I was told that the initial ask was 11.
Wow. So, as I always tell everybody in life, it's never bad to ask. Just make sure, just because you ask doesn't mean you receive. But
I want a Ferrari,
Yeah.
2 Swedish twins with big racks. I mean, come on. You don't always get what you ask for.
Yeah, that's rather debate. It's 11 million. My God, that's well, you never know. But no, there's no chance that's happening. So I guess you start super high, and then if you end up at 9, you're like, hey, we still got 9 mil, which is a pretty good number. And he'll come in lower than Evan Bouchard. I don't see how he won't, but
it depends on the term, because like if it is an 8-year deal, I could envision a number that starts with 10. Look at how much the cap is increasing. Like I just, if he can bounce back, and it's going to be the big if he can get back to like the whole Islanders scoring was depressed last year, which impacted his numbers in a significant way. But with a coaching change and with all these other things, if you're in his camp, you're saying in 8 years from now, the cap's going to be way north of 150. 6 years, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, we could be talking about 130. Halfway through, if the cap's 130 and you're producing 70 points, 75 points a year, I don't know that 10 is outlandish, to be honest.
My concern for Dobson is he did have a 70-point season, but then the next highest is 51, 49, and 39 last year. So was the 70 the outlier? And the other thing is, rightly or wrongly, anytime I'm signing guys to big money, he's yet to have he's played 31 playoff games. He has 10 points, which is that's a massive decrease from his 230 and 388, and no goals in the playoffs after 50 goals in a regular season. So that there are a few little concerns there for me to want to give that guy huge money just based off of 1 year out of 4.
I agree. I'm just trying to play it from both sides, and that's exactly the conversation that the Islanders would be having. But the other part of it is, unlike the Oilers, there aren't the same cap constraints that exist.
Yeah, no, fair. But just because you have cap space doesn't mean you want to waste cap space. That's
the Oilers have a limitation. Like, they can say to Evan Bouchard, this is the most we can do and no further.
Yeah, no,
the Islanders can't draw that line. They could say it, but it's then it's up to the team. Are we moving this guy?
No, well, that's fair. Now the New York Rangers, 85 points last year. They finished 11th, obviously hugely disappointing after winning the President's Trophy in 2024. Chris Kreider's being moved. I know Mika Zibanejad's name was out there. It doesn't sound like it's out there anymore, Frank, but where do you see the Rangers going? They obviously haven't been afraid to make some moves. They've freed up a little bit of cap space for them. Their name always seems to be, involved in things. They have a first and a second. They don't have a real extra abundance of picks. They have 2 third-rounders, but really that's it. And that's extra pick early on. So nothing significant. They made the JT Miller trade last year. What do you see? They just re-signed Matt Rempe, $975 for 2 years. So, bottom 6 guy, fits in well. They got Will Cooley, who they have to sign. That's a big one. Keandre Miller. So I guess let's start there with their RFAs and the chances that one or both or none are in New York.
My guess would be 1. Cooley, yes. I think the market for Keandre Miller has been robust. I think there's been 12 to 15 teams that have been interested. They see what a lot of people see, which is an effortless skater with size that can make some things happen. And the Rangers see a guy that they need to pay, that they aren't sure that they want to pay, that they know they need to retool their defense to defend better in front of Igor Shesterkin. So to answer your original question, I see Chris Drury as in on everything this summer. He's going to be trying to significantly improve this team and try and do it in one fell swoop, to take advantage of some Panarin time, to get a Zibanejad rebound, to help get Alexis Lafreniere back on track. Same thing with Adam Fox. And like our conversation about Boston, that this team can be a playoff team with the right pieces and the right moves.
Well, yeah, I think of all the teams who didn't make the playoffs last year in the East, the Rangers are at the top of my list, and probably by a fair margin to get back in the postseason. It was, Shesterkin. He didn't have a bad year actually overall. If you look at some of the underlying numbers, not just save percentage and wins, and so they still got an elite goalie. I think Adam Fox didn't have a very good year at all. So their defense has to be better. That's where they've got to be active, Frank. They, like right now they've got Will Borgen, Carson Soucy, Braden Schneider, Adam Fox, of course, Keandre Miller, and you're saying maybe they don't sign him. Zach Jones, who they like, but they need to
available. Zach Jones is available. They're willing to totally shake it up.
Yeah, Vakanainen's the other one, but they're lacking top pair defense and top four. So to me, they're looking to add one, if not two defensemen.
They need defenders. The guy that's been talked about a lot there is Gavrikov, which I'm not saying that guy specifically is the fit, but he makes sense stylistically for what they're looking to do.
Yes. Yeah. No. The Rangers, I would, if you had to ask me to bet, Frank, to me, it's easy money to put them on to make the playoffs, which leads us to a team that has a fan base that has been waiting. This is the year, Frank. This is the year. And we've heard this is the year now for the last 3 years for the Detroit Red Wings. They've been close, but they never get over the line to make the playoffs. They're in the playoff race, then they lose 6 in a row consecutive years, and that 6-game losing streak in March cost them a playoff spot. So you look at the Wings. I know let's start with Patrick Kane. There's rumblings that they'd like to re-sign him. I could see it happening. He had a good year for them, but Jeff Petrie, I'm assuming they'll let him walk. They got Alex Lyon, who might be, Frank, the one goalie that's the most interesting in the market, because I think there's some potential there in a very shallow goalie market. So what do you make of the Red Wings, and how can they get over the hump to become a playoff team?
Defense.
Yeah.
It's the biggest failure, the most critical flaw of Steve Yzerman's tenure has been his inability to evaluate pro NHL defensemen. He's made wrong signing after wrong trade, after jettisoning a Jake Wallman with a pick. It's been wrong. And the young guys, amateur, I said pro for a reason, because amateur-wise, they're cooking. They're in good shape. Like, they can draft, and the guys that they've got on the way, they are totally fine. They're good. They're better than average. Simon Edvinsson, fantastic. They're in really good shape. Axel Sandin-Pellikka, awesome. They're going to be really good. But the rest of the group is lacking in such a severe way that it is costing them an ability to make the playoffs. So what are they going to do this summer? They have to fix their defense. They are in the market for a goalie. And they need to stop tinkering around the edges. As important of a piece as Patrick Kane has been, and I view him much more as a power play specialist right now, as an archetype, than anything else. Patrick Kane and Vladimir Tarasenko are final puzzle pieces to Stanley Cup contenders. They are not how you build your team. They've swung and missed with their long-term center signings with Kopp and Comfer. Neither guy has really worked out.
No.
They've got
Which isn't a surprise, no offense. They were third-line centers.
But they were paid. They're paid now moving forward like third-line centers. But they need more to help Dylan Larkin. Dylan Larkin is a dog. Dylan Larkin is a competitor. Dylan Larkin is a guy you win with. And I love that he was vocal and honest. I don't think Steve Yzerman loved it to close out the season, but it's important.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I like Lucas Raymond too. I like Mo Seider. They got some pieces there, but man, they're going to have to make a good move here in the offseason. Otherwise, I think it's going to be same old. Finish 9th or 10th and be there, but not there, which is the last thing the Detroit Red Wings want.
Steve Yzerman's job is on the line.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And that leaves us to the Columbus Blue Jackets, Frank. They were the 9th place team. They did win their final 6 games of the season to get close. They came up 2 points shy of the Montreal Canadiens. Canadiens basically just had 2 extra overtime losses that were regulation losses for the Jackets. That was really the difference. Columbus had the emotional season. Everybody knows what happened, and they really seemed to rally around it. I think it's going to be hard to mirror that again, Frank. What do you make of Columbus?
I think last year was such a surprise year on so many levels. The way that they carried a tragedy with them all year was inspiring and amazing to see. Their young players really took huge steps forward. They ran into and hit a bit of a wall with some of the injuries that they had, which were, they seemed endless. It seemed like every time you turned around, the Columbus Blue Jackets were losing a guy for 3 months. And that really hurt. That said, I think they've got a really bright future for a team that had no issues at all putting the puck in the net. They scored like nobody's business, and guys that took big steps that I don't know that we necessarily saw coming. So yeah. I think the big thing is, as enticing as this summer is going to be to add pieces to your team and have other people buy in. And by the way, Zach Werenski, well-deserved runner-up finish for the Norris. Don't add pieces to your team that get in the way or clog the path for those guys to continue to take steps forward. Marchenko, 24, 74-point season. Kent Johnson, 22, big step forward, 57 points in 68 games. Adam Fantilli, 31 goals, massive step forward at age 20. Voronkov, 24, 47 points, 23 goals. Cole Sillinger even was fine. They have really strong pieces. Don't let anyone get in the way. Don't box any of those guys out.
Well, I look at the Blue Jackets, and next summer, and they could re-sign them now, but Cole Sillinger, Chinakhov, Adam Fantilli are all RFAs next summer, right? So they're going to get some raises there, but they have a boatload of UFAs right now, right? You've got James Van Riemsdyk, Sean Corrali, Christian Fischer, Luke Cunnin, Danworth. I don't think Kevin LeBank's coming back. He's hurt. Dmitry Voronkov is an RFA and needs a deal, and he had a great year. And then you got Jack Johnson, Ivan Provorov, UFA, Dante Fabro, UFA. How many of their guys do you think, Frank? Here we are on the 19th of June. How many of their UFAs do you think that they will keep?
Not that many.
Yeah.
I mean, Provorov has lingered so long now. He's wanted to re-sign. If he was going to, I would think that it's like, wouldn't you just go to market now? You're 11 days away.
You could go see, like, are you going to get more on the market than, because sometimes players do, and they go there for a day and they're like, okay, well, the numbers aren't what I thought they'd be, and I'll stay here. So, which is fine.
Who's kidding who? Like, his agent, anyone's agent knows what the numbers are around the whole league and what the actual market is right now, as opposed to 12/01 on July 1st. So
whoa.
I don't always understand that. I don't understand the thought process of being like, oh yeah, we'll wait until like, now, or you're going to resign. That's it.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I like their young players, man. You're right. Like, they had so many guys step up, and like Marchenko, what a player. I really enjoy watching him, and they could score. They were exciting. How about Mathieu Olivier, man? He's one of the toughest guys in the league, and he scores a lot. He's on the penalty kill. Like,
love him to death, but not giving him a 6-year deal.
A 6-year deal at $3 million?
Too long.
Too long? Okay.
But I think the one other thing is they need to fix their goaltending.
Yeah.
Elvis Merzlikins is a very sneaky 30 years old already.
31?
Yeah. I mean, look, it's not all on him, but his career save percentage is .902, and it's weighed heavily by the first 3 years of his career. In the last 3 seasons, he's at 119 starts and .890. .890 just isn't getting it done for you. So improved goaltending would be a big way to close the gap between yourself and a playoff spot.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. So of the teams who missed, Frank, who are the two that you give best chance to get in next year?
I will say the Rangers and the tough part is who's coming out. I could see Rangers in, Devils out.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I don't think Montreal had a -20. I think Montreal is going to be competitive, but like, could they lose a few games here or there? 100%. Like, I don't think they're locked in for sure as a guaranteed lock yet.
I don't know. I might only be one spot.
Yeah, maybe there's one. So you're saying the Rangers and that's it in the East?
Maybe. I could see Boston. I could see Columbus. Look, every year we get 3 to 4 that no one saw coming. No one saw the Rangers missing the playoffs this year.
Hey, dude, every year the last few years, you get 2 or 3 100-point teams missing the playoffs the next year.
Right. Yeah,
so
you're right.
That's what's kind of wild about it to me. So we'll see.
You want to bring in Tyler?
Yeah, let's bring in Ty.
What's up, boys? Ready to roll? Fresh edition of Buy or Sell, brought to you by our friends at Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. I got one more. I know you guys started with the Cup final, but I was going through this exercise last night in my head, and I think it's interesting. How many players who played in this Stanley Cup final are you buying on as a surefire hockey Hall of Famer? Like, could we look back at this series at the end of all these guys' careers and be like, holy shit, we had a Cup final with like 6, 7 hockey Hall of Famers in it? Frank, how many players? I know I'm putting you guys on the spot with a tough one out of the gates, but how many of these players do you think are surefire Hall of Famers?
Okay, so from Edmonton, McDavid, Draisaitl,
Perry.
I think. Well, Perry's not a definite, but I think he's probably pretty close. He's right on the edge. And if he continues to do what he's doing, Evan Bouchard is actually trending in that category as well. This is a great stat for you. He's the only player in NHL history with back-to-back 23-point playoff runs as a defenseman. Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul Coffey did not do that.
Bobby Orr
did not do that. Different scenario because Bobby Orr didn't play that many rounds, but nonetheless, 23 points back-to-back years, that is special. That's Hall of Fame caliber stuff. If you continue on that type of trajectory, and if you were to pile up a few cups with this team, I could see that for sure. On the Florida side, Barkov, Marchand has cemented himself as one. I could see Bobrovsky for sure. And that leaves like one of Reinhart, maybe.
Tkachuk.
Probably Matthew Tkachuk, probably trending in that direction. I mean, Matthew Tkachuk has 100-point seasons. He now has 3 Stanley Cup final appearances in a row. Essentially, that trade changed the franchise. Yeah, probably 7.
You just gave 8 if you count Matt Tkachuk. So, and that's not counting Reinhart.
I'm probably, not counting Reinhart, and I'm going to say Perry in and Bouchard in, so that's 8.
8. Greg's, you going a little higher? You going a little lower than 8?
No, I'm gonna say 7. I know longevity, it gets you in there for Perry maybe, but longevity has it up there for sure. But he's still kind of on the cusp. And Marchand, we'll see. Some guys, it depends, right? Like they're going to have to keep playing, right? So I'm going to say for sure locks. I have 5 locks, and then there's 6 locks, and then the rest are some guys who are going to have to get in.
Bouchard?
Now, Bouchard's not a lock yet because what if all of a sudden his career ends, right? So that's why
not a lock at all. I mean, I think a lot of people would point to the detriments in his game and say that's not a guy who plays at a Hall of Fame level, but the statistics alone are going to be hard.
Is he Larry Murphy of this generation?
Maybe.
Yeah. Just on Perry, I mean, triple gold glove, 2 Olympic golds. He's played just an insane amount of playoff games, been to all these cup finals, has an MVP. I think he'd be trending closer to a lock. I'd be closer to that side. But anyways, it is wild to think, like, we'll look back on this cup final in however many years and be like, wow, we saw potentially as many as 8 Hockey Hall of Famers in the series. You guys have obviously spent the last 2 shows talking about the non-playoff teams around the NHL. What playoff team are you buying on as being the most active this summer? Greg's, which team of the 16 that made the playoffs would you buy on as the GM is going to be the busiest?
Well, I think I'm going to go Vegas. I think they're always lurking around. They have a real high internal bar, and they're not afraid to make moves. So I think they're going to go hard after Mitch Marner, and I'm going to have Vegas 1, and I would have LA 2.
Frank?
Oh, they're both in the West. I'm going to say Carolina and 1 from the East, Carolina, and Vegas is a great answer. I'm going to say Minnesota.
I like
Actually,
that.
I'd like to change my LA. I think Dallas might surprise people.
Yeah, they could get busy. All right, boys, there you go. That is a wrap on a quick edition of Buy or Sell, brought to you by Bet365.
Well, there you go. It's this is very interesting on how this is going to be. Frank, we look at it next week. We will talk about the teams who made the playoffs and what their offseason is looking like, because, hey, as Florida's shown, even when you're the champ, you still make significant moves in the offseason. You just don't sit and bring back the same roster. It doesn't make any sense. So we'll discuss that next week. That's a rundown brought to you by Bet365. Have a great weekend.